friends and not yet friends, you've read the title and this might be the best tofu ever, but there is a catch, which I'll get into, but first, let's get straight into making this most luxurious, most delicious jade-colored tofu from scratch here on Mary's Test Kitchen. With the single ingredient, you may have already guessed since so many people requested it following my last two soy-free tofu videos, and I kinda made it obvious in the thumbnail. Pumpkin seeds. Please give this video a thumbs up if you appreciate me doing what you want. And what I want you to do is get pumpkin seeds that are raw and with the shells already removed. Though I've tested multiple times since filming this, you're actually watching my first time trying pumpkin seeds in my traditional tofu making method. And like with that traditional process, I am soaking the seeds overnight so they can fully hydrate in the fridge for food safety. If you've watched my other tofu making videos, you know the next steps already. Drain the soaking water, which has turned a lovely green. Then rinse. And you don't have to weigh them, but I do just in case anybody asks. We started with 1 pound or 454 grams of dry hulled raw pumpkin seeds, and it appears they absorbed about 160 grams of water. Next, take about half into your high-speed blender. No need to be exact, and I'm adding double the amount of water. Again, not trying to be exact, just want plenty of water, but not so much that I'm gonna have too much in my cooking pot later. Blend for 30 seconds on high until you do not see any chunky bits of pumpkin seeds whirling around in that jade-colored milk. Basically, you want to turn it into a pretty much uniform green. Grab your nut milk bag, hopefully a really fine, good quality one like this, and fold over the edge so it's easier to hold up in a large pot, and pour straight in. Then for the most annoying part of making tofu, the squeezing. Make sure to twist the top so nothing comes out of there and go get yourself a really good hand and forearm workout. Please ignore the blue gloves I had to put on midway through the process. They have nothing to do with the tutorial. Squeeze that pulp until no more creamy pumpkin seed milk comes out. And now you have pumpkin seed pulp. Notice how fine the particles are. It looks and acts a lot like Play-Doh, but not so fine as clay. If yours turns out wetter than this, you should strain it more. And if it's chunkier than this, you should put it back in the blender, add a little water, and try again. Speaking of the blender, we're going to do the same with the other half of the soaked pumpkin seeds. I'm using a glass bowl this time so we can all see better. And I already rinsed out the nut milk bag, so we can strain this as well. It's much creamier than the red lentil or fava bean milk, which makes sense because of the high protein and fat content of pumpkin seeds. According to the store I bought my seeds from, 1 pound of raw pumpkin seeds has about 136 grams of protein and 220 grams of fat. It also has about 50 grams of carbs, 27 of which is fiber, leaving 4 grams of sugar and presumably 16 grams of starch, some of which you can see stayed at the bottom of this pot, which please ignore the fact that it is so scratched up on the bottom. I promise I never ever used metal on it, but yes, I should probably get a new one. Anyways, presumably we've removed the fiber, the sugar is probably dissolved in the milk, and maybe some of the starch went into the pulp, some of it is left in, we just don't know exactly. What we do know is we have to heat up the milk and to get our other tofu making equipment ready. Or do we? You already know I love my little tofu press for this. Obviously, I use it for pressing store-bought tofu for recipes that benefit from a little at-home pressing like many stir-fries, but this one also comes with the cloth for tofu making, and using this whole set is way better than my old methods of making tofu. I might even buy a second one with all the tofu experiments we're gonna want to do together. By the way, let me know what other things you want me to tofu-ify in the comments below. Moving on, I typically use gypsum to coagulate the plant milk. It's reliable, doesn't add any taste to the tofu, and it's cheap. So this being the first time with pumpkin seed milk, I get it ready with room temperature water. But you've seen the title and you know I'm wasting my time right now, right? I get my wooden spatula and my handy dandy laser thermometer because I expect to get this up to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. At which point, I'll add the coagulant mixture and turn this milk into curds and whey. But watch as the temperature rises and we hit 150, we're getting to 160. It's already looking like it's coagulating for some reason. What the heck? It's already coagulating. We are at 170. Do we even need a coagulant? Oh my goodness. We have one ingredient tofu. I can feel the texture through the spoon. It feels squeaky, which I know is a weird description, but you'll agree when you try this yourself. My mind was blown. Is your mind blown? But why? Maybe because pumpkin seeds are high in magnesium? Maybe because my tap water is hard water, meaning relatively high in mineral content? I did end up putting this to the test the next day, and I'll share what happened, but for now I am just so stoked to transfer these huge curds to the prepared tofu mold. When it comes to making tofu, size does matter. Big curds make things easier. Makes a tofu that holds together better, or usually it does. Anyways, try to place the curds evenly as you go. Usually, tofu making away, the liquid left behind, is clear. This is so milky. Did we just make two products here? We'll find out, but first, let's finish the tofu. Fold over the cloth. Add the pressing plate and this lid, which has a spring to put pressure on the curds, so it will form a nice solid block and squeeze out excess water. No weights needed, no stack of books, no falling cans, and we have this handy vent to pour out the excess liquid. I love this thing so much, can you tell? You can twist the top, which presses the plate down further. Make that tofu as firm as it could be. Pour off more water. Then, into the fridge overnight to fully chill. In the meantime, I'm not about to waste this Milky Way. It's surprisingly creamy, probably due to the high fat content from the seeds, and it's actually really delicious. You can absolutely use this as plant-based milk. It has a mild nutty flavor with the whisper of a hint of sweetness. It's so good. And the tofu? Well, let's take a look. It's very solid and easy to cut, has a bit of a bouncy quality, and the taste is lovely. Mild, and you really can taste the pumpkin seeds. It is creamy, but solid, and not in a fall-apart crumbly kind of way like the starchy fava bean tofu. It's in its own luxurious category if you ask me. But was this a fluke? Does this self-coagulation come from the seeds themselves, or does it have anything to do with the mineral-rich water coming from my taps here in Calgary, Alberta, where our water comes from the Rocky Mountain watershed? I tried again with bottled distilled water. I try never to buy bottled water, but for this I had to test if there was a difference before I brought this tutorial to you. And the moment of truth? It was not a fluke. I can now fully and confidently recommend that you do try this at home. Printable recipe linked in the description. There is, however, a catch, as I mentioned before. But first, let us season some of these pale jade green cubes of high protein deliciousness to make them even more delicious and see what they do in the air fryer. 4 tests going in, plain, simply seasoned, and half of each sprayed with oil. I air fried at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes in my air fryer. Afterwards, we have lovely Frankenstein-looking tofu and Mrs. Frankenstein-looking tofu covered in a lovely brown dress showing just a little green through. I love how this keeps getting more and more season-appropriate. Let's look inside. You can see some pockets where the steam escaped. But you can't tell the oil-sprayed tofu from the plain. The seasoned looks mostly the same on the inside too. And let's take a look at the uncooked version for comparison. It tastes like salted pumpkin seeds, if pumpkin seeds were creamy. You can tell there is a high fat content. It feels as though the fat helped fry this on the outside, which explains why there isn't any discernible difference between the sprayed and unsprayed versions. No joke, they were so good. It's creamy on the inside, crispy on the outside. I would make this the exact same way over and over again, and I have since. No oil spray necessary. But the catch, my friends, it's kind of expensive. 1 pound of raw hulled pumpkin seeds cost me $9.67 Canadian. I purchased mine from Bulk Barn, and it was the lowest price I could find. From that, you get a 370-gram block of very, very firm tofu, which, to be fair, is very filling. And you'd have about 3 cups of a very, very nice pumpkin seed milk for drinking, or use in your plant-based creamy sauces or soups. Compare that to store-bought soy tofu. They sell that for like $3 these days. That said, it's not apples to apples. Regular tofu has almost no fat, it's not as filling. And this pumpkin seed tofu, my friends, I cannot stress enough, is like luxurious in comparison. And having this rich source of plant-based fat in a protein source that's also low carb is so rare. And I find this tofu much more filling and satisfying than regular or fava bean or red lentil tofu. This is my favorite tofu by far. But what if you don't want to put in the work? Well, there is a brand called Pumfu, which unfortunately I have not been able to try because I haven't been able to find it here in Canada, but it is available in the United States. They use the same ingredient, nothing added. The cost, though, is a wee tiny bit more expensive than my homemade version, although depending on how much pumpkin seeds go for near you, it might be a cost-effective solution. I'd love to try it. In any case, you've got to try this homemade pumpkin seed tofu at least once. It's so good, and I have to thank everyone who requested this tofu experiment, because you guys, I swear, have changed my life from now on. Speaking of life, I gotta go get one. So please like and subscribe. Watch this next, might I say, brilliant tutorial full of high protein, plant-based goodness, and surprisingly next to no carbs. And I will say bye for now.